level. You ever find yourself lying awake at night, minding asking, why do I feel so what's supposed to be love? You ever chase after silence, begging it to mean something? Convince self that distance is just their way of caring quietly. Let me tell you something. If love confusion is like waiting, if love feels like a constant guessing game, it's not love, it's survival. And you were another of your relationship, you were made to feel safe in them. So let's talk about it. Let's get real about what avoidant behavior really means. And stop dressing up emotional absence as devotion. Stop romanticizing emotional avoidance. You've heard it before. Maybe in a late night phone call with a friend, maybe scrolling through a reel, or maybe another to whisper yourself in a moment of confusion. I think they're just scared to love. Oh, this is how they pull away. They need space, they're avoidant, but that means they care, right? No. See, we live in a world that glorifies broken behavior. We package pain in pretty words. We take distance, emotional unavailability, and inconsistency, and we twist it into romance. And suddenly, when someone disappears for days, when they shut another level, when they give you just enough to keep you hanging on, you don't walk away. You justify it. You call it mystery or death. You call it love. But let's get one thing straight. Love shows up. Love doesn't vanish into silence. Love isn't a riddle you have to solve while losing your sanity. Her name's Natalie, late 20s, smart, strong, deeply empathic. She met a guy who seemed perfect on paper. Charming, another level, rally beginning. He told her been through a lot. I opened up easily. She took it as honesty, vulnerability, a green flag maybe, and for a while things were beautiful. They talked every day. He shared bits and pieces of himself just to make her feel chosen. But then came the cold spells, days without a text, canceled plans, vague explanations. He would reappear with just the right words. I'm just overwhelmed. I've never felt this way before. I'm scared of losing you. And Natalie, she stayed because she thought his fear was proof of his depth. That is pulling another way, mean his feelings were intense, and his silence was a sign of emotional weight, but neglect. But over time, something in her began to break. The constant waiting, the anxiety, the overthinking. She began questioning another lead self. Am I being too in touch? And she started shrinking. You see it when we romanticize emotional avoidance. We stop asking, does the relationship feel good? And we start asking, how can I make them snap? That's not love. That's self-abandonment. You start becoming an investigator instead of a partner. You analyze texts like clues. You decode silences like riddles. And every time they give you a little bit of affection, you feel like you've won a prize. But love, real love, it's not a scavenger hunt. You don't need to interpret absence as affection. You don't need to chase someone just to feel worthy. Love, because here's the truth. People who are capable of loving you will clearly, consistently, clearly you will look avoidance is real. And it comes from real pain, childhood wounds, trauma, fear of intimacy. But understanding someone's wants doesn't mean you should tolerate being whipped by them. I get it. And empathy is powerful. You want to be the person who stays, who helps, who proves that you're safe. Go at another level. But let me ask you, while you're fighting for them, who's fighting for you, there's a difference between compassion and sacrifice. You can understand someone's past without letting it destroy your present. Coaching a young another once, maybe 24, he came to me, drained, emotionally hollow, said he had been in and on again, off again relationship for almost 3 years. She was magnetic, brilliant, artistic, soulful, but she was also deeply avoidant. Every time they got close, she'd panic and pull away. So I'll tell you, to him, it's not you, it's me, and he believed it. He kept showing up, loving harder, trying to prove he wasn't like the others who hurt her. But the more he gave, the more invisible he felt. And then one day, I asked him a simple question. What would it look like if someone loved you the way you love her? He went quiet. And after a long pause, he said, I don't know, I've never seen it. That's what this does to you. It convinces you that your role in love is to earn it, to wait for it, to justify pain because you're afraid of losing possibility. But you're not here to be someone's exception. You're not here to be chosen once they're done running for themselves. You are not the healing project of someone afraid to meet you halfway. And if you think tolerating distance you're strong, no, that's not strength. That's fear disguised, because loyal to want Morty, you're allowed to say, this doesn't feel like love to me. You're allowed to stop trying to prove your worth to someone who only sees you when it's convenient. No, you don't need to psychoanalyze a partner who disappears. You don't need to make excuses for hot and calm behavior. You don't need to stay loyal to someone half present. Because you are not a placeholder. You are not an emotional support system for someone emotionally absent. Love doesn't look like avoidance dressed in. Love looks like presence, like stay. Someone who shows up even when it's hard. Someone who chooses communication over withdrawal, intimacy over ego, commitment over coast. And maybe the reason you've stayed so long is because you thought loving someone meant accepting all of them. Even the parts that hurt you. But that's not love. You weren't made to endure love. You were made to experience it. Let us heal, yes. But don't set yourself on fire to keep their fear of intimacy warm. Because if someone is afraid to love another level, it is not your job to convince them that love is safe. It's their job to rise to meet you. If someone truly loves you, their actions will show it. Not in theory, not what they promise tomorrow, but how they show up today. Not just in what they say when things are easy, but in what they do when things get uncomfortable. Another level, it's love and just chemistry. It's not just the butterflies in your stomach, the thrill of hearing their name. Love, real love, is action. It's the follow through. It's the effort. Levels to show another tired, even when they're scared, even when they're triggered. Words are easy. Anyone can say, I love you, but love isn't proven a sentence. It's proven the little things. The level of text to make sure you got home safe. The way they lean in when you speak. The effort to resolve a fight instead of walking away. The simple everyday choices that say, you matter to me. I'm at that level. We've all met someone who knew exactly, right? They knew how to talk about the future, how to promise forever, how to make you feel like you were finally safe. And maybe for a while you believed them. Maybe you believed that love was enough to make up for the confusion, the inconsistency. But over time, something starts to feel off. They say you're the most important person in their life, but they never make time. They say they can't imagine life without you, but they're never emotionally present when you need them. They say you're their priority, but you keep ending up last. And that disconnect between the words and action, that's where heartbreak starts. Because let's be honest, love without action is just a story we tell ourselves to feel less alone. You can't build a relationship on potential, that's on unapplied promises. And you definitely can't feel safe with someone whose actions lean you in the dark. Think about this. If someone constantly tells they care, but they show up late, cancel plans, ignore your needs, put another level, what are they really communicating? Because when it comes down to it, we don't love with our lives. There's a guy I worked with named there in early 30s. Kind-hearted, thoughtful. A little even dating someone who thought about wanting a serious relationship, a future marriage, the whole picture. But months went by and nothing changed. She wouldn't commit, close, then push away. She'd say, get to another level. You mean so? But she'd disappear emotional the moment things got real. Aaron kept giving her the benefit of doubt. She's just scary. She's been hurt before. And while all of that may have been true, the fact remained her actions didn't match her words. He'd show up. She'd withdraw. He'd initiate conversations. She'd evolve. He felt like he was loving for her too. Eventually, after he had another broken promise, I asked him, if you stopped listening to what she says and only watched what she does, what story would you hear? He was quiet. You could see the answer hit him like a wave, because the truth was her actions weren't saying, I love you. They were saying, I love the attention. I love the idea. But another level. But I'm not ready to love you in action. And that's the hard part, because we want to believe words. We want to believe that the way they look at us means something. But love isn't the look to someone's eyes. It's what they do when you're hurt and you need support. When life gets messy, love is in the consistency and the reliability and the effort and the showing up. Now at 11, again, not because it's easy, because you matter. Self-worth is not negotiable. Well, that's sinking for a second. It's not up for debate, not up for discussion, definitely not up for compromise. No matter how charming, broken, or mysterious someone might be. But here's the thing, a lot of us don't realize we're negotiating until we're already deep in it. You think you're being understanding. You think you're being patient. Someone's space to grow, to heal, to come around. But slowly, quietly, you start making yourself smaller. You stop asking for what you need, totally silence. You rationalize mixed signals. You convince yourself that love means waiting. Love means proving. Love means earning someone's consistency. It doesn't require you to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's comfort zone. Real love meets you at eye level. It sees your worth without you having to perform for it. There was a woman I worked with once. Her name was Lena. Mid-30s, incredibly intuitive, successful in her career, but constantly placed in her relationship. Her partner was distant, hot and cold, emotionally and unavailable, and then every time he pulled away, she'd blame herself. I kept asking for too much. Maybe I just need to be more chill, more isogonal, less emotional. And over time, that inner voice, the one that once said, I deserve to be loved out loud, it got quieter. She started second-guessing everything, stopped stressing her needs, stopped setting boundaries, because every time she tried, he'd say, you're too sensitive, or you're making it drama out of nothing. Because when someone chevalier your worth in small, subtle ways, it doesn't always feel like a blow. It feels like erosion, level. But here's what she eventually realized. Now, maybe you need to hear this too. When someone can't meet you with emotional maturity, it says nothing about your value. Their inability to love you properly does not mean you are unlovable. Another level, you don't have to beg for effort. You don't have to justify your need for respect. You don't have to settle for crumbs because someone's giving them with pretty words. The moment you start negotiating your worth, you start making excuses for disrespect, rewriting your boundaries and tolerating confusion. That's the moment you start losing pieces of yourself. Because here's the true thing. I love that when you let someone treat you like you're disposable, it teaches your nervous system that love is supposed to be painful. That love means waiting to be chosen. That love means staying when you're unseen. But you were never made to beg for what natural. You weren't made to tolerate emotional starvation just because someone claims to be trying. Trying is not enough when you're bleeding for connection and they're offering silence. You teach people how to treat you by the allow, by the standards you hold, by the boundaries you enforce, not what once, not when it's convenient, but consistently. And if someone can meet you there, can meet you where your worth already lies, then maybe they're not supposed to sit at your table because you're not here to convince anyone you're valuable. You're here to walk in it. You're not under pretending. You're here that real love never asks you to forget who you are just to keep someone else comfortable. Love requires emotional responsibility, not avoidance, not silence, not escape routes. And I love responsibilities. Showing up when it's uncomfortable. That means choosing courage over ego. Facing your own fears without punishing the person who loves you for seeing them. But so many people think love is just a feeling. They think if the chemistry is strong, if the attraction is magnetic, then everything else will work itself out. But the truth is no amount of attraction can make up for emotional immaturity. It doesn't matter how deep the connection feels at the moment conflict arises. They shut down. It doesn't matter how many times they say, I've never felt this way before they disappear. The second vulnerability knocks at the door. And it definitely doesn't matter how much potential they have if they refuse to take responsibility for how their actions impact someone else. Emotional responsibility means owning your patterns. It means recognizing your defense mechanisms, your trauma, without using them as a shield to hurt someone else. Because here's what happens. You get into something real, something meaningful, and then suddenly it triggers old wounds, abandonment fears pressure, and instead of leaning in, they pull away. Instead of communicating, they disappear. Instead of scared, they say nothing. Get to another level. Or worse, they say you're too intense, you're overthinking things. But here's the thing, love is not about avoiding triggers. It's about being aware of them and choosing to grow through them. There's a man I coached named once, he was deeply in love with a woman who saw him fully, every part of him. She didn't just love the strong parts, she loved the fragile ones too. But every time they got close, every time she opened her time, she said, I need you to talk to me when something's wrong. He'd shut down. He'd vanish into his work. He'd say he needed space. He'd act like nothing was wrong, while the distance between them grew louder and louder. And one day she said something that stuck with him. She looked him in the eye and said, I'm not leaving another local. I'm leaving her for you because you to be responsible for the part of me you keep hurting. That hit hard because it's not your fear that breaks the relationship. It's your refusal to own it. We all have fears, but love, real, lasting love asks you to take responsibility for how those words show up in your relationships. It asks you to say, hey, I'm triggered right now, but I want to work through this with you. It asks you to lean in and shed and try to communicate to you before your silence becomes an injury. And it doesn't mean you'll be perfect. It just means you'll be accountable. But accountability becomes chosen. It becomes highs and lows, push and pull. Fear disguises passion. And before you know it, you're caught though that feels addictive. But it's not love, it's survival. It doesn't mean get survive your relationships. You're not meant to grow inside them. You're meant to feel stable enough to unravel and strong enough to stay when it gets messy. Emotional responsibility means saying, I know my patterns, and I want to let them let something good. It means looking inward instead of lashing outward. It means being able to love out loud. Even when it feels scary, consistency is not a luxury in love. It's the foundation. It's not a favor. It's not something you should be grateful for. Healthy love requires. And yet, how many of us settle for emotional breadcrumbs? Waiting, hoping, praying that one good day will outweigh the 6 confusing ones, that the sweet moments, the highs, will somehow cancel out the nights spent overthinking, refreshing your phone, wondering another person who cares so much, can't seem to show up when it matters most. But here's what most people don't admit. Inconsistency is a choice. It's not about the level, being busy, bad at texting. It's not because they're scared of how deep this connection feels. It's because they're choosing not to prioritize clarity. Get to another level. They need to communicate clearly. They're choosing not to create emotional safety for you because that's real. Someone wants to be there. When someone values you, they find a way. You don't have to beg for effort. You don't have to decode mixed signals. You don't live in a constant state of, do they still care today? That's not love. That's emotional confusion, and confusion is not romantic. It's exhausting. There was a woman I once met during a REIT. Her name was Marissa. She was bright, articulate, successful, and completely torn apart inside of a relationship that had drained her for 2 years. Man, she loved would show up in waves. One week, he'd come every night, send flower days, talk about the future. And the next, silence, voiceless, mood swings, disconnection. And every time she brought it up, he'd say, you know, I love you. Well, level, why are you always, that's what inconsistency does. It flips the script. It makes you feel like the problem, like you're needy, like you're overacting for needing what is actually basic emotional presence. People level, and that's how they keep chasing the version of the person who shows up sometimes, believing if they just do more, love harder, wait longer, they'll get that version back. But here's what Marissa finally realized. Consistency isn't proven in grand gestures, it's in the check-ins, the follow-through, the willingness to be emotionally available, not just when it's convenient, but when it counts. Another level, because somebody cares and make you question your place in their life every other week, and then come back expecting a warm welcome without explanation. They don't leave you hanging and call it space. No, they communify. Consistency builds trust, and trust is the oxygen of love. Without it, everything suffocates. And it doesn't mean perfection is emotional reliability. It means when they say, I'm not letting me hear it. It means they don't punish you with silence when they're upset. They don't weaponize distance. They don't make you fight for their presence. Level, get built on a lie, someone who's only present half the time. You can't build security with someone who leaves you anxious more than they leave you loved. And you absolutely can't grow in an environment where love is conditional, based on mood or circumstance. Consistency is how you say, I'm not just here for the heights, I'm here for the responsibility too. It's how you build something that lasts. It's how love becomes safe, not just strong. Level. Avoidance is not love. It's fear wearing a mask. Let's call it what it is. It's not deep emotional complexity. It's not some beautiful mystery you're meant to solve. It's someone who's afraid to face themselves, to stay in control by staying and calling that. But love. Real love does not hide behind silence. It does not vanish when conversations get raw. It does not punish you for having needs, emotions, or expectations. Level, other behavior might feel intense. It might look like passion when they finally come back around. What it really is a cycle, a loop. One where connection feels just out of reach and your self-worth gets tied to whether they decide to show up or disappear again. That's not love. That's emotional roulette. You cannot keep excusing patterns that make you feel unseen. You cannot let in calling confusion, chemistry. You cannot keep telling yourself, maybe next time you'll stay while you're bleeding every time they go. Avoidance doesn't protect love. It poisons it because love requires presence. It requires someone unwilling to want to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. Every time it asks for more as a man I knew, Daniel, smart, thoughtful, traumatized, in a house where emotion was punished, where vulnerability was weakness and silence was safety. So every time a woman got close, every time things got intimate, he'd pull back. He'd become cold, aloof, unreachable. Get to another level. They even did something wrong. They think they were too emotional, too sensitive, because that's what avoidance does. It shifts the blame. It leaves the other person wondering, why am I not with this? They were always enough. He just wasn't emotionally equipped to receive it. Avoidant people often want love. They crave connection, but they fear the cost of intimacy. They fear losing themselves. They fear being seen, they're being needed, and instead of facing that fear, they disappear into distractions, detachment, defensiveness. But that's not your responsibility to fix. It's not you, John, who's committed to hiding. It's not your role to be the anchor for someone who won't stop running. It's not love if you're constantly waiting to be chosen with both hands half empty. Because love without availability is a cage, one that keeps you hoping, guessing, sacrifice. And the longer you stay in it, the more you confuse inconsistency for depth. But you deserve more than someone who's only present on their terms. And at another level, you deserve someone who makes you question your worth every time they retreat. You deserve more than someone who mistakes emotional withholding for strength. You deserve someone who doesn't flinch at connection. Someone another doesn't host when it's real. Someone who chooses passion. Because love is not proven intensity. It's proven in consistency and emotional bravery. And someone who meets you in the middle. Not someone who makes you chase them to feel close. So if you're caught in a loop with someone avoidant, let this be your reminder. You were not made to beg for connection. You were made to experience it fully. Go to the story that says you've earned someone's capacity to love. You'll walk into the truth that says you're already worthy of love that stays. Love speaks. Love that shows up. Love that doesn't hide when you need it the most.